In our lead story this week, Robert Fisk of the London Independent reports that the United States has asked Saudi Arabia if it can supply weapons to the rebels in Benghazi in a desperate attempt to avoid U.S. military involvement in Libya in the event of a prolonged struggle between the Gaddafi regime and its opponents. The Saudi kingdom, already facing a day of rage from its 10% Shia Muslim community with a ban on all demonstrations, has so far failed to respond to Washington's highly classified request, although King Abdullah personally loathes the Libyan leader who tried to assassinate him just over a year ago. Washington's request is in line with other U.S. military cooperation with the Saudis. The royal family in Jeddah, which was deeply involved in the Contra scandal during the Reagan administration, gave immediate support to American efforts to arm guerrillas fighting the Soviet army in Afghanistan in 1980, and later, to America's chagrin, also funded and armed the Taliban. But the Saudis remain the only U.S. Arab ally strategically placed and capable of furnishing weapons to the guerrillas of Libya. Their assistance would allow Washington to disclaim any military involvement in the supply chain, even though the arms would be American and paid for by the Saudis. According to Fisk, the Saudis have been told that opponents of Gaddafi need anti-tank rockets and mortars as a first priority to hold off attacks by Gaddafi's armor and ground-to-air missiles to shoot down his fighter bombers. We only want planes, but we want nothing else. They should only come in with planes, but we don't want them to come into our country with troops on the ground. Supplies could reach Benghazi within 48 hours, but they would need to be delivered to air bases in Libya or to Benghazi airport. If the guerrillas can then go on to the offensive and assault Gaddafi's strongholds in western Libya, the political pressure on America and NATO, not least from Republican members of Congress, to establish a no-fly zone would be reduced. We ask European countries for just one thing, to enforce a no-fly zone and block passage by sea. That's it. We only ask for this. U.S. military planners have already made it clear that a zone of this kind would necessitate U.S. air attacks on Libya's functioning, if seriously depleted, anti-aircraft missile bases, thus bringing Washington directly into the war on the side of Gaddafi's opponents.
There's a lot of, frankly, loose talk about some of these military options, and let's just call a spade a spade. A no-fly zone begins with an attack on Libya to destroy the air defenses. That's the way you do a no-fly zone. And then you can fly planes around the country and not worry about our guys being shot down. But that's the way it starts.
I'm not endorsing it.
And it requires, no, I understand, but it also requires more airplanes than you would find on a single aircraft carrier. So it is a big operation in a big country.
But Saudi Arabia is already facing dangers from a coordinated day of protest by its own Shia Muslim citizens who, emboldened by the Shia uprising in the neighboring island of Bahrain, have called for street protests against the ruling family of Al Saud last week. If the Saudi government accedes to Americans' request to send guns and missiles to Libyan rebels, however, it would be almost impossible for President Barack Obama to condemn the kingdom for any violence against the Shias of the northeast provinces. Thus, according to Fisk, as the Arab awakening, the demand for democracy in North Africa, the Shia revolt, and the rising against Gaddafi become entangled in the space of just a few hours with the U.S. military priorities in the region.